welcome all back to the Hip Hop Scholar Podcast. Up next, we're sitting down with an artist who doesn't just rhyme words. He rearranges how we think, sincerely so. A craftsman of thought, a sculptor of sound, and one half of the Denver duo Calm, alongside the equally brilliant Time. He's the kind of artist who reminds you that hip-hop was never about charts or clout. It was about consciousness. His name is AwareNess. And for decades, that name has meant something real to those who still believe in the sacred space between message and music. From the haunting depths of Anti-Smiles, a project that cut through apathy with fearless self-examination, to the bold social critique embedded in every line he delivers. AwareNess has carried the torch for what hip-hop sounds like when intellect meets integrity. He is a lyricist who writes with both pen and pulse, a producer who builds worlds out of frequencies and silence, weaving soundscapes that refuse to let us sleep through our own story. He is hip-hop in its most human form, aware of the pain, the beauty, the injustice, and the infinite possibility that coexist in every bar. What makes AwareNess so necessary right now in this moment is that he moves through the art as both witness and architect. He doesn't rap to escape reality. He raps to document it, to decode it, and to challenge it. Whether he's building beats in the shadows of Denver's underground or sparking conversations that ripple across classrooms and communities, his work exists at that sacred intersection between music and meaning. And here's the thing. You can't talk about AwareNess without talking about legacy, because his contributions aren't confined to one era or one album. He's part of a continuum. The griot tradition, the educator's discipline, the rebel's heartbeat. His verses carry the weight of history and the fire of revolution, but always with grace, humility, and purpose. His music doesn't scream, it shows. It shows us what it means to be alive, alert, and anchored in truth. So today, Hip Hop Scholar family, we're not just talking about production or poetry. We're exploring the philosophy behind his artistry, the resilience, the self-reflection, and the refusal to compromise that have kept him grounded in a culture too often distracted by noise. Today, we give him his flowers while he's here to receive them, because artists like AwareNess don't come around often. And when they do, they remind us why hip-hop will always be bigger than entertainment. It's education, it's evolution, it's evidence that we are still thinking, still feeling, and still alive. With that, I want to welcome AwareNess to the Hip Hop Scholar Podcast.
Thank you, Melanie, for having me. It's an honor. Introduction that, amazing, but thank you so much.
Yes, sir. We give flowers here at the Hip Hop Scholar Podcast. When we think about hip hop and rap and all of that, right? We think first the entertainment, what it looks like, how it makes us feel, lighthearted at times, even able to, shake to the rhythm. But also when we think back to what hip hop started with and how it made us to really contemplate knowledge of self, to really evaluate the systems that are in place and our placement in this cog and this wheel, that's where AwareNess comes in, not just as a rapper, but also a producer. So that duality, that dual role that you have as a producer, as a creator, even additionally as a lyricist, as an artist altogether, there's a lot to unpack today. And we welcome you here on the Hip Hop Scholar Podcast, a true honor. And like I was telling you earlier, the lecturer, and I am definitely the student today.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks again for having me. I'll let you lead with the questions, and I'll do the best I can to answer whatever you got.
All right. Well, let's start with the first question. I ask all of my artists this question. When did you fall in love with hip hop? What was it about any of the pillars of hip hop that got you started within this particular genre?
Man, this is way back. I grew up in it, so as far as I can remember, It was probably like when I was like 5 years old or something, and my neighbors would like bring out the cardboard and trying to break dance. And I didn't know what it was, but I was like, that's crazy. I would love to do that, but at the same time, I never was like really trying to break dance. Like I knew that was not for me, but I thought it was amazing. They also introduced me to, you know, I mean, when you're 5, like everything's an introduction, but they were introducing me to everything that they were listening to, and they were like 5, 6, 7, 8 years older. So, you know, they were 10, 11, and 12 years old, and showing me just whatever was out there. Whether it was, I mean, back then, it probably would have been like Cool Mo D, Public Enemy, LL Cool J. I mean, this probably would have been like 86, 87. So, I, since then, it's what I grew up in and what I've identified with since the first thing I've heard. So, yeah, that's as far back as I can remember in terms
And
of hip hop.
yeah, at the age of 5, and many of my artists, even myself, we really think that we can't think back when we were without hip hop. Like hip hop has always
Yeah.
been a part of our lives. So to pinpoint
Hmm.
that first one, it's what we all feel like. When you have the Cool Moldies, the Big Daddy Kane, the LL Cool J. Now that cardboard, right? To see that
Yeah.
those children at that age, 10, 11, 12, as they're trying to form their identity and around the age of 5, really trying to grasp this consciousness of self, right? Of being a person in a world. So, hip hop truly is part of that paradigm shift that really awoken all of us to breathe in and out of consciousness. So I'm right there with you, especially early 80s. My first cassette tape was the Fresh Prince and DJ Jazzy Jeff. My parents bought that for me, and that was the very first cassette tape that I have. And this was well before Fresh Prince was a TV show, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so all of those reminders, right? And I also want to ask you this: that same music at the age of 5, maybe even 4, I'm guessing, is that still some music that you could put on today and feel?
Yeah, for sure. Um, I mean, like I got into from there. I was like got into Kid and Play, Salt and Pepper, and that was before like House Party. And then, like you said, Fresh Prince, DJ Jazzy Jeff, especially before the TV show. Um, Watching music videos, you know, watching Yo MTV raps. Um, I mean, looking up to my neighbors, they were older than me, so I was like, these people are cool. Like, so they were always hipping me to whatever was new out there. My first cassette tape though, I got two at the same time, and it was Stevie Wonder in Square Circle and Michael Jackson's Thriller. And those two set a path for me as well because I just loved them. So alongside hip hop, I grew up with R&B, a ton of it. And my sister was older, so she was like listening to Janet Jackson, New Edition, and so like all of that aspect. And she was even telling me about Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. Like I didn't even know what was what. I'm like, so like, older people in my life were teaching me about it and showing me parts of it that I don't know. I think most people probably didn't think about or care about. Like, who else is gonna know about Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, producers for Janet Jackson? My sister did, and I don't even know why, but she did, and she was telling me about it, and then I was like, okay, Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis, Minneapolis, and that's why she's always like Minneapolis, like in her songs. So I don't know. I started to like really just fall in love with music as well in that space. So hip hop, R&B together, I loved them both.
And the merging of them both as a producer, the accompaniments, placing that music together. Could you say that that's influenced you to produce music at the same token, not just the lyrics with it, but the rhythm and the beats and every and the cadences of it? Many other artists talk about how being in a church or having an additional genre in addition to hip hop. And there's a lot of sampling that also goes into hip hop too. But do you think that, having, and I want to throw in Albie Shore. I bet she was listening to Albie Shore along that time with,
Yeah, I'll be sure for sure.
yeah. But
I mean, you,
did that
yeah, all
influence
of
you
them.
to be that DJ as well, that MC on and off the microphone?
Well, first of all, so I don't rap much. I really just, I mean, time made me rap a couple times. So I used to want to be, but mostly production. And I used to write a lot in high school. So then, from I don't know, it's probably just me being insecure, but there was like a lot of dope MCs. So I was like, man, I'm not that nice. So I'll just stick to producing. One of the things I did have was a computer where a lot of people didn't have, and so I was able to like get into production before like everyone's a producer now. Everyone makes music now. Before all that, I was able, fortunate enough to have a computer. So and absolutely, and a little bit about my past. So you touched on church. You know, I grew up. So it's a little bit unique about the way I grew up. We were the only Mexican family in an all-black neighborhood. So I kind of got a mixture of both cultures. My mom sang choir at the church, but it's a Catholic church. And so I also had that. So I was in the church all the time, listening to the choir singing and them playing, and they'd have a live band, the guitarist, the trumpet, violin, all that stuff. And that definitely, played a role in influencing me. And then outside of church in the neighborhood, I had everyone else showing me all this great music, legendary music that, I had no clue at the time. And, you know, so those things definitely inspired me. And R&B inspired me a whole lot, and not just hip hop, like sampling. My mom had some old records, that I would listen to and sample too when I was young, and pretend and be like, oh, this is cool. Listen to this, and put on the record, and it was like Temptations, or even I remember she had a 45 of like Ben, Michael Jackson. Well, he was like still young singing Ben, and I was like, this is Michael Jackson. So hearing Ben on the 45 was crazy. Um, but yeah, so all those things influenced me in a big way. And I think Michael Jackson was a huge influence on me. I wanted to be a musician, and him and Stevie Wonder were huge. And again, those were the first two cassette tapes, and I just so happened to pick up two of the most legendary artists. And I don't know what made me pick them. I picked them. I was 5. Like I was like, I need these two right here, Mom, please. I need Michael Jackson Thriller, and I need Stevie Wonder in Square Circle. Like, I have no idea why I picked those two, but I did, and the rest is history, I guess.
I mean, historical, even, right? I think that
Yeah.
bridges and answers a lot of questions of your authenticity. And it also, like, I'm looking at my articles here, and I was just being introduced to the article when I was talking to Time, but the article by Ron Eglash on hip hop is computational neuroscience, right? Where you're thinking about how the beats affect the brain and how truly putting those things together. I want to ask you, I feel like you have that neurodivergence. So like when you hear sound, what do you actually see? Do you see the notes? Do you see colors? Do you just have a feeling when it comes to it? I feel like your approach to placing music together seems to be a bit different than your normal, like you say, you got a beat machine, you put the beats together and it comes together. But your process, though, can you kind of unpack your process when you're putting beats together? And is it sound? Is it a mood? Is it colors? Like, talk to us about that.
It's usually a mood. So I think what I try to convey with most of my music is a feeling. You know, if you have that one song that brings you back to like the summer of '93, and you're like instantly taken back. You have that mood, that feeling, that nostalgia, or you're watching a movie and that music just makes it. Like without that music, the movie probably would have been nothing. So I try to create a mood, a feeling, an energy from the music that conveys the message we're trying to convey. And when I'm hearing music outside of my own, I definitely, I think I see it in terms of mood, like in terms of it's talking to me in terms of a language that's emotional. And so I can hear different pieces. And I'm one of the people where if I hear a certain piece, I get goosebumps. Or I might even just cry, honestly. Like, there's some pieces that like move me so much that I'll just break down. I can't even help it. And I found out that was pretty weird. I guess most people don't feel that way about music, but for me, that's the way, so it speaks to me in emotional intelligence. And so I can hear different pieces of music and it'll convey a thought form of a mood, and then I can, break it down. That's how I kind of chunk it into moods and feelings of, okay, this conveyed this emotion, this conveyed this emotion. And I don't know if it conveys that emotion for everyone, or, because I'm only using my own internal experiences of what that sound means to me. But it seems to be pretty accurate for most people, conveying those things. So that's the way I see it. It's an emotion, and I feel it more than anything. I don't see it in my head like some people. I just feel it, and I'm like, oh, that's the feeling I need. And so I listen to music a lot. Also, it's like a form of catharsis. Like I'll listen to music as a release. Like I think a lot of people feel that way too, where they'll listen to music and it kind of helps them get through something. It helps them feel that release. I've always been told, like, you listen to sad music, it's really sad. Like, how come you listen to that? It's so sad. And I'm like, this is not sad at all. This is beautiful. Like, it doesn't make me feel sad in any way, it makes me feel alive. So maybe music helps me process my own feelings, and that's how my relationship to music, I think, is. I've come to realize that music, yeah, it probably helps me process my own emotions, and without it, maybe I struggle.
Maybe we struggle. I think I know that when
Maybe.
as yeah, for like sincerely, like when you were speaking, the two words cinematography and empath, those are the two words that popped into my mind, where you're trying to create this move to make people feel something. And that's that cinematography piece, because what do movies do? They have this plot, they have all of these different events that occur to make people feel that. But then that empath, being empathic to a beat, being empathic to additionally the lyrics that are there, right? I think you can hear an instrumental and become overwhelmed with feelings, right? And then in
Yeah.
addition to that, to hear the words that someone speaks. And so when you think about Stevie Wonder and you Michael Jackson, they both had their a very troubling past in their youth to create music. Their music came from a sense of struggle. So the beauty that they were able to create to be these legends and these phenoms wasn't just about people moving their feet. It was about how they were able to make people feel something through decades, through time, and it's timeless even, right? And so that speaks a lot about your name being awareness, where you are aware of the essence of it all in those small nuances. So no, it's not weird at all. I think you did a very well spoken piece on explaining that to me, and explaining that to our listeners too, of what it means to create music to make people feel something in a very real way, and beginning with self too, because it's hard for people to be analytical and explain, oh, why do you like this song? Oh, it just makes me feel ah, and they're unable to actually explain. But truly being able to create that though, right, is one thing to hear it and be like, yeah, wow, it feel makes me feel so good, but to put those pieces together, that's a whole nother level of thinking there, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, that's what I come to realize the more I think about it. And I know music makes people feel stuff, like whether they interpret it like I do. But for whatever reason, I was always drawn to the more melancholy music. Like, you put on some Nina Simone, I loved it. Like, I identified it with, like, instantly. Don't Let Me Be Misunderstood. Like, that music just speaks to me. And not the lyrics too, but the whole, like, I just can interpret the song into an emotion. The lyrics, the music together creates this one thing that I just identify with. And it's like, I understand that. And it just makes me feel alive. So then it doesn't make me sad at all. It just makes me feel great. I'm like, yes, this is like soul. Like, this makes me feel something. It makes me feel something real and authentic. And for whatever reason, that's just the way I've been. So I think that comes across in a lot of my music as well. A lot of it's really moody and introspective, and I think that's just a lot of who I am.
And meditative. I want to add that,
Yeah.
that being able to meditate, and really think about that present feeling. So let's start with your name, right? Where did you form the name AwareNess to share your identity as your stage name?
Probably back to high school. I don't know. I wanted to call myself Logic at first because I'm a pretty technical thinker. And, I found out my friend was going by Logic. So he was like, that's my name. I'm Logic. I was like, man, whatever. I was like wanting to fight him over it. But then, I was like, okay, whatever. You can have it. It's probably common anyway. And then, so I let it go and was like, just thinking, like, well, what explains who I am in one word? How can I identify myself in one word? And I just remember thinking, like, I never really I never really liked smoking weed or drinking, and like, cause I don't like being like I want to be aware of everything that's going on, and I had a hard time dealing with, like, I think I was probably 15. I got super high, and I was like the most high I'd ever been, and I was terrified. Honestly, I was like, I never wanted to smoke after that. I was like, I couldn't even, I didn't even understand where I was. That was the worst feeling for me. I don't know how anybody loves that, but for me, it was absolute chaos. So I was like, yeah, I like being aware of everything I can be, and I think that conveyed itself pretty well because I try to learn a lot about a lot of different things. I'm a fan of knowledge, and think I probably fill my brain with a ton of useless knowledge, but I enjoy learning a lot, and so those two things stuck out to me. So I felt like awareness fit.
Oh yeah. To allude to that question, right? You gave us a background experience that activated that knowledge piece of, wow, he's very much so aware, in tune, and connected. So awareness definitely, logic sounds good too, but like you said, that run of the mill name. And you could have probably easily have said, no, I'm logic. You find you another name. But at the same token, you were like, you know what? I'll take a step back and let me again self reflect. And this is in high school. This is a formidable time of forming your identity. So, again, you're being an empath, not really understanding why you're so in tune and aware of everything, but to take a step back and say, let me be calm and figure this out, and you did, and it's stuck through these decades and truly embodies exactly who you are. And so even with your group Calm, um when and crafting this Anti Smiles, right? So Anti Smiles is a project that you and Time Raps placed together. What was the energy and emotion then when you that was driving that project? Talk about that and unpack that with us, the emotion with that project.
Okay. Yeah, that was a while ago. We were both a lot younger, and you know, we we were already working together in music, but we decided to do like just a project that was just exclusively me and him, no one else. And so, we worked through different names, and eventually we came up with Calm. And that first album was like a combination of probably a whole lot of different things because he was going through a lot of different things on his end. And, he's like, what, 4 years younger than me. And when you're younger, that age gap is a bigger difference than when you're older. So I think I was 25, he was 21, something like that. And being 21 is a little different than being 25. And he was going through a lot of different things. And from my perspective, I was like working third shift at a 7-Eleven, so overnights. And I remember I'd come home. Eventually, I'd crash in the basement because it was dark. And I usually have a movie on. And I remember like it would be DVDs back then. So like after the movie was over, the title screen would just be on loop. It would just be on loop, and it would give me all these crazy dreams. Like that music piece, whatever was on the title, would give me all these crazy dreams. So a lot of it was like movie inspired. I'd wake up with like ideas like, what? This is crazy. I need to do this. And then like one of them was American Beauty. That title screen was playing over and over and over. And it was like that plastic bag theme. So then I was like, I'm going to use that because it gave me some wild dreams and it has so much emotion tied to it. And I need to figure out how to use that sample in a rap beat. Like, how am I going to turn that into a hip hop beat? And I did it. And I think that's probably one of the most popular songs off that album. And then I used a lot of classical music on that too. And we were both doing our own separate things at the same time. They just worked together. Whatever emotions I was putting together as far as the instrumentals, Time was writing something that almost fit it perfectly. And what I'd come to find out years later that wasn't so obvious to us, but this happens to us a lot. And we'll create pieces of work separately that just connect like if we were doing it together.
That's that empath feeling, right? Like, you
Yeah.
know, being able to bond and it being able to transcend time, and like Time Raps has said in our interview, time isn't linear. And to think that you all can create something that's along the same lines in two different spectrums, two different mind frames as well, that speaks volumes to the connectedness, but also the reach that you all are destined to continue to bring. And so I remember this, American Beauty, and this, I think Anti Smiles, is this 2006, I believe? Was this around that
Yeah.
time frame? Okay, so
Yeah.
this was about 20 years ago, right? And so, but also that again, that meditation. So I remember DVDs. We're around the same generation, you and I, and so with you going into that REM sleep, and you are sober. You are without any type of intoxication. So this natural thought process and sleep cycle, and you are listening to different movie scores, and like you said earlier, and I took a class when I got my bachelor's about the movie soundtracks and the beauty of it. One of the one of my projects for that particular class was the movie Blood In and Blood Out, and uh, unpacking that soundtrack. And that's a movie I know in and out verbatim, one of a classic indeed. Yet when we think about again that meditation, like I just did meditation with my sorority sister this last week, and we had the bowls, we were at the space, and you know, going into that deep sleep. And before you get to sleep, that beta, right before alpha or such, and thinking about what you just talked about at the very beginning with your experience with feeling and cinematography and empath, it's no wonder that your music really does, make an impact to an audience. Like, I don't think that you could prevent that because it's so methodical, it's so specific when you place these things together because it's done just naturally all together. That's what I'm hearing.
Well, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Man, this is really cool. It's man, it's introspective. Like on, this is where hip hop meets scholarship in a very academic and scholarly way. This is what my goal is for this podcast is to place hip hop in a scholarly academic way where we can have the pedagogy in curriculum where not where we're naturally learning it, but we can teach others to do the same. We can. There's another article I have here. I just had it. That's the Ron Eglash. So this one by Jonathan Clatter, university students facilitating hip hop in a community engagement project, experiences and perceptions. And so, as a genre of popular music education, hip hop music education remains an outlier in higher education. So, people still don't understand the scope in which hip hop truly can reach and teach and change the essence of how people feel. And so that's my goal is to, do these types of interviews and get these in the field and have artists like yourselves that are literally doing the work, this empirical reasoning, and unpacking it for our audience. And so that, it just is a mainstay. And you've said it beautifully, my dear friend, in a way that
Thank you.
it provokes a lot. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it very much. And so let's talk about, we dove into that piece, and again, the lecturer in you. You're very modest. You're very, soft spoken, but at the same time, your music hits heavy. You all have, but this was an article from Shadowproof, the protest song of the week, Landlord of the Gentrophiles by Calm. And you all featured Lee Reed and Buddha. And, again, that's not something where it's rainbows and rain hitting the window. This is really contemplating change in the world. So going from Stevie Wonder, Michael Jackson to protest genre music, you know, like talk to us about the why of that. And I understand it, but I want you to verbalize that for our audience, please, sir.
Yeah. Well, I think hip hop was always that in a lot of ways, from what I can remember, and of course, it has so many different avenues. Like that's part of what makes hip hop so great is you could do so many different genres within hip hop and it's still hip hop. Like you can use classical music with hip hop. You can use guitars, make it sound like rock. Like you can do whatever with hip hop. So hip hop has always had that. Speaking from what's happening outside with what people are going through, having them being able to use it as an avenue of expression, that's always been there. One of my one of my first like actual rap albums was probably Public Enemy. Was it like 91 Apocalypse 91? Like Shut Them Down
Mm,
and Can't Trust It. Like those those spoke to me too, even then, and unknowing it, unknowingly, like that was just who I was. I think at that point too, but and time as well, and we've had all of our music go through different phases as well, and we're not always going to have the political piece. Time is a poli sci major. Like he's got he's got he's got himself in tune to all of the political issues, and he teaches me a lot. Um, we've always have the same feeling and sentiment of what's going on with our environment, with the country, whether it's politics or it's just environmental, social, economical. But you know, he's my teacher in that sense. Like I have the hunger for the knowledge and the desire to learn it, and I have the passion behind that same sentiment. But I'm not like I can't read hundreds of books like that dude. He's reading books upon books upon books. Then he's coming back and teaching me, and I appreciate that from him. Um, because I don't have that discipline, but I have the hunger, the desire for the knowledge. So we are very much aligned in that sense of the way we feel about a lot of things, and that's what leads to a lot of it. He tries to do, I think, his solo projects a little more political, and the calm projects are a little bit more cinematic, I guess. We usually would create a whole world where we create a narrative where it's a whole story. We just build a whole world for an album, and we try to dive into that world. And you can't help but to have some of the political, tones come through. Um, Landlord of the Gentriflies was like, conversations with a willow tree, and most of it was those conversations with that willow tree. But in doing so, you can't help to bring up some of the things that are impacting us as people, especially as it becomes more and more prevalent in these times. It's becoming harder and harder not to, because it is a reflection of what we're living in. It's our own interpretation of what we're living and going through, and that's going back to your dystopian, you know, comment you made earlier. More and more, it's harder and harder not to have it be kind of dystopian. That's what we're like at the precipice of a dystopian world, and a lot of people don't see it. Um, Lucky for those people that don't see it, I don't know, but those of us that do see it, I think there's a ton of us that see it, and we can all empathize with that. But that's where it stems from. It's always been a part of us, I think, and hip hop throughout has always fueled that. Like hip hop has taught me so much. Um, I mean, I'm sure Ty mentioned it too. Like you got Kweli, Mos Def, Dead Prez. I mean, listening to anybody who, like, I used to be like back then. I was like, oh, you can't just rap about anything. You have an obligation to put people on and to teach. I don't feel that way now, but I did then, and I can respect all genres for whatever they were. Like I used to hate the Hot Boys, but now I love the Hot Boys. Like I can tune into that and enjoy it for what it is, and respect it for what it is. Versus back then, I was like, nah, man, you can't. You're just keeping people down. Like, how could you be saying that? Like, but I see things differently now. But still, nevertheless, hip hop was there throughout, and always listening to things that I felt was more conscious hip hop. And you listen to Wu Tang. I love the Wu Tang, right? But
Yes.
out of Wu Tang, my favorites were RZA and the GZA, because they're more technical with the pen, and speaking more consciously than any of the other members. And so I think we both had similar thought processes, and hip hop definitely helped teach us and shape us. Like I didn't know nothing about Willie Lynch till Kweli said something about it, and so I
Mm-hmm.
looked it up. And then I'm like, then that opens up another world of like, what else don't I know? And the RZA talking about John Hawkins back in 1555. Those things, and even Killer Priest, like Killer Priest used to say a ton of stuff that I'd have to look up. So hip hop taught me a lot. It made me look up a lot of things that I didn't know. It was like, what are they talking about? Because I know they're not just talking about nothing. Like, I need to learn what they're talking about. And so it put me on to a lot of different things and different points of views that I probably wouldn't have had otherwise. And even Bob Marley, like I remember having a teacher tell me Bob Marley was bad. I was like, how is Bob Marley bad? You don't understand Bob Marley. So,
Right.
but that just shows somebody else's perspective of that. And it's wild to me to think that, you know, people exist like that have that viewpoint. It's like so foreign to me.
Yeah, I agree to that. Where that confirmation bias, where they just
Hmm.
refuse to agree or learn something if it disagrees with what they already know. That's the opposite of being open minded. And so a couple of things with what you were saying. So with Tom being a political science major and you're being an empath, we are in a world. I am the mother, the proud mother of a child with autism. And so they learn the world in a much different way, where no, they're not going to sit down, or most are not going to sit down and read a book. They may listen to an audio text, but also being able to experience knowledge in a very different way. I think that's what makes your duo such an impactful duo, because you all take the logic and then take the neurodivergence and then bond that together to create the experience, and that is able to reach many people. Like you're saying, like RZA and Ajiza, they also I don't know what universities, but they have served as professors at top universities and have taught classes and continue to teach classes, not just of hip hop but of like quantum physics and some real in-depth type
Yeah,
of
that's the jizza.
you know what I'm saying? Like for
Yep.
them to go abomatomically, Socrates' philosophies and hypotheses came to find out I'll be dropping these mockeries and be like rapping this gritty slums of Shaolin type of lyrics, and then to turn around and have that respect and that knowledge base. Again, that's it's just like you said, hip hop can be rock and roll, it could be classic, it could be anything it wants to be, because it is this molecular structure that can just move and be creative in any space that it's in. And when you were talking about the hot boys, now I'm born and raised from Louisiana. I'm in Houston, Texas. I represent Houston, Texas now. But when Hot Boys and No Limit, and they have their versus battle coming up soon, right? And so the rise of Cash Money Records and No Limit around that time, before there were no rappers in Louisiana, there was no, Master P, there was no, anybody that had that respect in hip hop like we had in Texas or like on the East Coast. When we watched Yo MTV Raps, I was one of the few that would watch Yo MTV Raps and see West Coast and see East Coast, but to see the rise of Hot Boys, especially artists like Juvenile or Lil Wayne. Lil Wayne was like 13 years old, even younger than that when he joined in, and this affirmation type of, you know what, damn the world, we're gonna conquer, we're gonna come through. And yes, at the time, when I'm listening to it in high school, I wasn't thinking about the introspective piece of the affirming and really showcasing that the Louisiana, this part of Gulf Coast, has something to say. Yet now that appreciation of it, like I'm really excited for this verses, but it also showcases the culture in that part, right? And that goes along with rappers in the Midwest, rappers from all over the world. I've had the honor of talking to rappers in Austria not too long ago, and they're influenced by Detroit rap. They love D12, they love Eminem. And the rise of that is what influences them. And so all of this different music, hip hop music especially, from all types of the world, does something to people, where it's not just the words that are spoken that, oh, when they said this sentence, it made me feel this way. No, it's this music impacted me in such a way that I can continue in this world, this Hunger Games that we're in. Like we're all tributes in this in this place trying to survive. In all actuality, there's tributes. I'm reading the Haymitch one right now. I'm currently reading that along with these other articles, but that's essentially where we are. So with what you are, right? You being against the grain, you're continuing, and you've always been against the grain. Awareness, right? Right. This is not something that you just started doing where I'm gonna just take a step back. You've always been on the outside looking in, but also that spirit of you being able to amalgamate in and out of that and weaving that into your music. Now, from your perspective, where do you see hip hop going right now? One of my questions, what's been lost in the evolution? We talked about the 2000s and even the 90s, fight the power and, all those things that were happening again, then the propaganda that was in the 90s and, even the 80s. But thinking about it now, what, from your perspective, awareness, what's been gained and then what's been lost in this evolution of hip hop? What are your thoughts there?
Well, it's hard for me to say that anything's been lost. I feel like it's there. You just need to know where to find it in terms of if it's something you're looking for. I think it's there. I think if it's only gained a lot more in every way, negatively, positively. It's gained a lot of different artists that use it negatively and have negative messages, but to each their own. And it has also a plethora of people who are bringing it back. And you actually, in my opinion, I'm seeing a resurgence of what we would have called the golden era of hip hop more now than before. You've got new artists like Mavi who sound like he was straight out of the 90s or early 2000s. And I mean, I think it's there. I think you just have to maybe look for it a little bit harder than you used to. There's so many more artists. There's so much more music. There's so much more access to music. Like one of the reason I have the Public Enemy cassette tape is because I went to the record store and was like, "Yo, what's the hottest shit right now? What do I need to have?" And he was like, "Yo, you need this." And I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna get it." Like I heard one track off of it was like, "I need this," and then it had the little fold out insert with the lyrics so I could learn it too. I was like, "Oh yeah, this is it." But I think it's there, and I think it's up to us to look for it, find it, and once we find it, let's share it and spread it. Right now, it's information overload. We got every song we've ever heard almost available on our phone, and we've got so many more artists, like I was saying earlier, so many people with access to making music, to rapping, to all genres, not just hip hop, but in general. And so it's inundated. You've got plenty of new albums coming out left and right. So I think just like back in the day, people used to dig through the records. You got to dig through whatever it is, if it's streaming or social media, to find the artists that you can relate to. Because we're out here, we're doing it, and information and attention for that music is harder and harder for every artist to get. And you've got like even legacy artists putting out stuff that you barely even hear about. Who was it? It's known about, but like even the Raekwon and Nas, they did it. They did a new track together. Like I had to like find that. Like it wasn't just like there. I don't know. It's just different. But I don't think anything's been lost. Ultimately, I think it's all there. You just gotta find it. And there's been a lot have gained. Music has come a long way. Music sounds better than it ever has before. Like from a technical aspect, I was like listening to music now, like even from early 2000s, like it just sounds rich. It's got so much more depth and warmth to it, like layers, the way people are mixing and mastering. I mean, the whole nine, it's crazy. And hip hop has come with that. And I remember when people would be like, hip hop isn't gonna, it's nothing, it's not gonna last, it's a fad. Like, now hip hop is universal, and hip hop is so universal that it's outlived, I think, every genre. I mean, and it's going to, I think, it's going to continue to outlive every genre. But, it's up to us as musicians to create what we want to hear out there, and it's up to those that are listeners to put everyone else on to what's good out there.
Yeah, I agree that acquisition and not just being inundated with whatever's popular, but acquiring. And then when you were talking about the Nas track, you have artists like Slick Rick and Kwame that are
Yeah.
not stopping their music. They're promoting and making new music, even better music. If you can, imagine growing up in the 90s and having the polka dot clothes and, having the Slick Ricks and such, and now as an adult to not only appreciate then, but to see them grow, it makes it timeless, right? It makes us not only remember our youth, but continue in essence with that. And I love what you said about how hip hop is outliving these other genres because guess what? In the Olympics, they have that hip hop breakdancing uh, competition in the Olympics, right? I don't see that with rock and roll or with R&B or anything. Even though they tried to do a parody, they had that one dancer from Australia that clearly, right?
She ruined
And I
it.
she attempted to ruin it, right? If anything, she made a mockery of herself because what everybody saw was that she had not done her research. Everyone felt disrespected in that moment because the like for real, like she was very disrespectful and was embarrassing to herself, not where anyone that knows of hip hop, that is a hip hop head like we are, but everyone was disrespected by it. She will never do that again. And as they continue in that genre, there were so many other dancers that were phenomenal. I mean, phenomenal to keep that that statementship of what hip hop truly is. That's one of the pillars is breakdancing, that cardboard that you were talking about at the very beginning. Did you see the Olympics? How did you feel when you saw that piece? Not the Australian, but just to see that sport in the
To
Olympics. How did
see
that
it
make you
there,
feel? Hmm?
it felt amazing to see it in the Olympics. And as funny as she was, like it was so disrespectful, like you said, and it pissed me off more than anything because I see 5 year olds doing better than that, and it's like, come on, like not only did she disrespect it, but whoever even like allowed this to happen is like you said, it's like intentional. Like, come on, like this is crazy. There's kids out here better than her, and how is she on the Olympic stage? But seeing hip hop in the Olympics was incredible. It was absolutely dope.
Yeah, it was the dopest thing. Like seeing Tony Hawk in the skateboard competition too during that Olympics, and that was a test I think, right? That was the first time it was introduced. They wanted to have representation, and they saw what they needed to see, and so the next Olympics, I guarantee that it won't happen again. They whoever is going to represent whatever country around the world, they could be from Antarctica, they can be from Sicily, Italy. They're going to do their research. They're going to look and see what to do, what not to do. But in that first trial, which is it was a trial run, that's what occurred. But the bigger aspect of it, like you're saying, awareness is that hip hop will continue to outlive any genre. You have artists that have been doing this and will continue to do this for decades. There is no cap when it comes to creating music, when it comes to sharing music, and then being able to not only find new music, but to also reminisce to the classics as well. And we do have. I interviewed an artist named Devin 22, and his nod right now is to the LL Cool J, and his sounds a lot like Kool Moe Dee. And he hadn't heard of Kool Moe Dee, like he's heard of it, but I introduced him to the Kool Moe Dee and the Starsky It was a rap battle back in '81, and I sent him that YouTube link and shared with him, this is what you sound like. Although this is from 1981, this is exactly what you sound like. And this was after the interview and he was already into like LL Cool J and doing his research and still wants to know more. This is a young guy that just graduated from Morehouse College in his early 20s, that wants to know more. Yes, so you have them out there, and again, shout out to the Hip Hop Scholar podcast because I want to target and feature artists like yourself and like Devin 22 and all the artists, Neota Parker, time raps, that are international, that are national, but are also looking at hip hop for hip hop's sake, where it's not just helping the time go by better, but helping us to express and helping others to help to express themselves in that essence. And we have a neurodiverse community that's growing. And so, one of the ways that we're able to target them, like my son with autism, is with hip hop. He's a nonverbal autistic, but guess when he starts talking is if you play some Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah.
It's crazy how it just
Yeah.
unleashes that piece. So,
Yeah.
I encourage you, awareness as the duo, as the independent, and continue to find your voice. Continue your producing and accompaniments and such, and then continue to find your voice to share out because there's a lot that can be learned. And thank you for still carrying that torch, so that we don't have anything lost to.
Absolutely. That's what I'm here to do. Continue to, take our world, turn it into music, and put it back out there for people to help them process. Help them process. And hip hop has always done that. And I
It,
don't
it,
think it's been told, but music anyway. But hip hop, I feel like is more, even more so. Um, Helps us process things. There was a study, and I didn't get to read it all, but I heard briefly, and you might have touched on it. It might be the same one, but where if you're a producer and you work with loops and samples, it actually restructures the way you think, and it improves your pattern recognition and mathematical ability, which is wild to me. Hip hop is just like a superpower, I feel like, and that's why it's so strong. That's why it's universal and speaks to so many people. So I think that's true for music, but hip hop in general more so than a lot of genres out there. It's going to continue to grow. It's going to continue to help us express ourselves and, to work through the life that we're going through.
right. There's a science to that. The loops, the beatboxing, like they had an MRI, the profile of somebody that was beatboxing, and to see how the brain and the mouth and the air, how all of that comes together. It's this intricate thing that is scientifical. And then with the when you're freestyling, being able to freestyle, uh, uses the left and right brain at the same time and fires these neurons that don't occur in even mathematical computations. Like hip hop is this scientific type essence, that really has to be studied. Like we can't just have it as surface level and that we have these pocketed conversations. No, there is real research, and there's authors like Ron E. Glass, Jonathan Clatter. This is by Elaine Richardson and Gwendolyn Poe. Even this article, what do we know? Positive impact of hip hop pedagogy on student learning effect. These Zi Ling, Yuan Chen, Xing Zhao, and Dongping Zhang, these are from the University of the Baobao in Chile, in China. Okay, they reviewed this Changshu Institute of Technology in China. Like this is a serious genre that is finally right, and with scholars like myself and like us, really trying to make certain that it's not lost, right? We are losing our ability to hold on to specific histories. We are losing this ability to have this expression of freedom, being able to share out the oppressions of people both here and overseas, and we can't lose that freedom, nor can we lose that thought process and that empath of being able to care for one another in that too. And so there are many scholars that are out there, and then juxtaposing things together. That's the goal again of this podcast, is to be able to share out, discuss, unpack, reveal, and really look at it from this phenomenological awareness, this lived in experience from artists like yourselves. And it just impacts me to hear exactly what my theory is, and it's really being used in practice in real life. And so yeah, it's like being in the Hunger Games and we're allies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And trying to break this machine that the game makers are trying to create. And that's what we're actively doing now.
Yeah. I mean, that's where it came from, it was an art form that came out of nothing. And you take you take the turntablism. We didn't even touch on that, but you're creating a whole instrument out of records, out of a record player. Like, it's an actual, now considered an instrument. And then same with graffiti. Like, the people that took what they had and created art with it. And then you got, the rhyming. It all came from expression within the community, working through what we're going through, and these type of environments that fed the fuel. And now, like you said, it's being recognized, and it's been recognized, I think, but I still feel like it's not given the credit that it's due. More so now, but and hopefully that we've got records and archives of all the greats from the past that will continue to carry us through. Hopefully we don't lose access to that. If it goes back to just being within the communities like it started, I think it'll survive regardless. It's something that can't be stopped, and it hasn't been stopped since it started. So can't stop, won't stop is truth.
Right. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And I have so many other questions to ask. There's so many other questions, but I want to honor your time as well. I welcome you back to the Hip Hop Scholar podcast again and again and again to discuss these merits and to really dig deep into your brain as a lecturer, I, the student. This has been a very informative and affirming conversation with you today, AwareNess. I sincerely thank you for joining me today on the
Thank
podcast.
you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And I'm open to coming back, like you said, with time. We can hop on together somehow. So we'll figure it out.
Oh yeah, definitely. We have to. We definitely have to. Like, I don't know if Riverside can contain all of that, but we will figure that out and get that greatness, and then definitely reach and teach, and give an honor to you all as well. You all are a duo that is impactful. You all are using your voices to bring awareness to what's going on around the world. And I use this podcast, Hip Hop Scholar Family. Please check them out. Check out the links in the description box here on YouTube as well as Spotify, and be certain that you are growing and learning from artists like AwareNess, in addition to his duo time in the group Calm. So with that said, I am Melanie, the Hip Hop Scholar, on the Hip Hop Scholar podcast. Thanking AwareNess for joining us again, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.
And you too. Don't forget, you too. You're helping spread that word in the community. So thank you just as much. And peace.
Yes. Peace out of here for sure.